I'm a huge fan of the way the Miami Dolphins have built their football team. They are all about getting dynamic star players around their quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. And I will say, let me just give Tua Tagovailoa a little bit of his flowers because I had some doubts about Tua. I didn't think the upside was all that great. The injury history at Alabama concerned me. I didn't necessarily say Tua would be a bust, but I don't know. I just wasn't a guy that was willing to put all my eggs in the Tua Tagovailoa basket until I saw him, really kind of prove me wrong. And I think Tua is doing a pretty good job as the Dolphins quarterback. He's been, kind of what they hoped he would be. An accurate thrower of the football, a very good leader that has operated at a high level within the system. And you can't really ask for much more from your quarterback than what Tua has provided them. He's won games, he's been accurate, been a good decision maker, been a good leader, and it seems like the franchise is behind him, at least for now. I mean, when Tua is going right, he's one of the more accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. Not to mention Tyreek Hill, best wide receiver in the entire NFL. That was a groundbreaking trade, and what do you know? If you build around a young quarterback, they're going to succeed. So many NFL teams just fail to put weapons around their quarterback, and they wonder, why is this quarterback not succeeding? Hello? Do you see who he's throwing to? Do you see that offensive line? Get a clue, people. But congratulations to the Dolphins. They have done an excellent job of building a potential Super Bowl caliber roster around Tua Tagovailoa. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they've added stars to their defense. And listen, let me tell you something right now. I was wrong about Mike McDaniel. I thought that guy was going to be a doink, going to be a flop as an NFL head coach. He's been the exact opposite. He's an excellent head coach. He's one of the best offensive minds in the sport. I will say, though, the Miami Dolphins are a young football team, and they will need to eventually get over that hump and really, truly figure out how to win big games because we've seen them this year versus, teams above 500, and it hasn't looked all that great. In fact, over the past 2 years, the Dolphins' record versus teams above 500 is abysmal. They don't beat good teams. Now, of course, you can only play teams that are on your schedule, but I don't know, man. In terms of trusting Miami to win a Super Bowl, I think they're a couple of years away. And that may be disappointing to Miami Dolphins fans, but that's my job right here. I have to be honest. And as good as Miami has done constructing a roster, they're a very young team, and the Miami Dolphins style of play does not automatically suggest Super Bowl wins. Because let's look at some great teams from sports in the past. The Bill Belichick and Tom Brady led Patriots, they weren't all that flashy. They didn't have these type of weapons that the Dolphins had, but you know what they had? They had grit. They had determination. They had physicality. They played defense. They were great on special teams. They were not a flashy football team. They were a hard-nosed, tough football team that will punch you in the mouth. You look at other sports, look at basketball. Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls, they were flashy. They were high-flying at times because of Michael, but they were one of the best defensive teams of modern NBA history. A hard-nosed defensive team that was not afraid to get punched in the mouth, and if they did get punched in the mouth, they would punch back even harder. You look at the Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry Golden State Warriors, as dynamic as they were offensively, there was a level of toughness to that team. They bought in on defense. They were an elite defensive unit. That's what made them such unstoppable forces and an unstoppable team. See, the Miami Dolphins are that flashy Ferrari on the freeway. But if you get that Ferrari on some black ice or some snow, it's going to be slipping and sliding a little bit, people. Those tires aren't necessarily meant to overcome the Rocky Mountains. I'm just saying, people. Football is, at the root, a meat and potatoes sport that leans into physicality. And you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they check that box, the physicality box. Last year, they were among the league leaders in sacks. The Baltimore Ravens, physical football team. 49ers, physical football team that will bully you. The Philadelphia Eagles, we know about their hard-nosed toughness. The Miami Dolphins style doesn't suggest Super Bowls. They're an outdoor, warm-weather team, and when things are perfect for them, they're going to win most of those track races. But in the playoffs, when teams have equally as talented rosters or just as good of coaching staffs where they can make adjustments and they play a physical brand of football, Is Miami going to be in a little bit of trouble? I worry about them a little bit because when things are perfect for Tua, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game, but when things break down, Tua is asked to make plays off script. Tua Tagovailoa at times can struggle, and it's about overcoming come playoff time. You look at Patrick Mahomes last year, a bunch of injuries to the wide receiver core. It didn't matter. Patrick Mahomes was going to make the mailman from across the street look good because Patrick Mahomes, he's a guy that can elevate players when things aren't going so well. You look at Joe Burrow, a couple of years ago, sacked so many times. I mean, he was sacked over 70 times within the season, just kept getting back up and eventually got the Bengals all the way to a Super Bowl. Obviously, they didn't win the Super Bowl because there's a ceiling to a team with a bad offensive line, but Joe Burrow's the type of quarterback that can overcome, maybe not having the best wide receiver core, a bad offensive line. Can Tua Tagovailoa overcome some things if Mike McDaniel doesn't have all the adjustments right in front of him? It remains to be seen. And you even look at a team like the 49ers several years ago, super duper talented. They just dominated their way to a Super Bowl. It looked like they were going to dominate the Kansas City Chiefs, but the minute Patrick Mahomes got momentum, they could not stop him. And Jimmy Garoppolo fell apart because Jimmy Garoppolo was a limited game-managing quarterback that was being masked by a very good roster. And we have to find out, is Tua, closer to Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, or is he closer to the likes of Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo? Because if he's closer to Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm sorry to tell you, Miami Dolphins fans, but that may not be good enough. Flatly. Especially if Miami is as inconsistent as they are on the defensive side of the football. So I'm willing to see how this Miami Dolphins experiment pans out, but until I see the Miami Dolphins play a more physical brand of football and really truly get over that hump, I can't believe that they're a true Super Bowl contender. I think that they're fun to watch and they're flashy, and we'll see. Maybe this style of football can eventually win a Super Bowl. I could be totally wrong, but only time will tell, and that's my thoughts on Tua and the Dolphins, and we'll see what they do going forward and how their team will be constructed, down the road.